budget hearing on February 27th. We really have not heard from this group enough in this committee, and certainly the health subcommittee. So I want to thank you for your willingness to be here today and testify. I'd also observe that we're about the 1-year anniversary of the passage and signing of the Pandemic All Hazard Preparedness Act. We had a wonderful opportunity in January, February, perhaps early March of this year to do some real-time introspection as to whether or not that bill had gotten things right. Did we do was it performing as intended? Was it going as expected? And for whatever reason, we chose to talk about flavored tobacco, horse racing, and ticket stubs instead. So we can be critical of the administration, Mr. Chairman, but this committee bears some of that responsibility as well. Since we've been talking about community spread, an increase in community spread, I also, Dr. Fauci, have been talking to some of my counterparts, physicians in the lower Rio Grande Valley, and spread in that part near the border of Mexico. Community spread has been apparently significant over the last week to 10 days. I guess the question I would have for you and for Admiral Giroir is, since we recognize community spread is increasing and we recognize that there's still going to be the vulnerabilities of congregate living facilities, what are we doing to make certain that the appropriate amount of personal protective equipment is available to our congregate living facilities, extended care facilities, and nursing homes, not just in the Valley, but any place where we see this community spread increasing?
So, thank you, Dr. Burgess. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Again, I am familiar with the PPE situation from my work on the UCG at FEMA, and I think you know that it was decided by the UCG very early that when we were able to secure the PPE, we would send directly to and we're sending PPE directly to 15,000, I believe the number is 400 nursing homes. And the numbers are really staggering: millions of face shields, masks, 13 million pairs of gloves already there. So that's being distributed right now, and there are going to be multiple tranches of that. Again, Admiral Polubchak is running this through the supply chain task force. I've got all the swabs and all the tests. He runs the PPE, and we interact a lot. So that's going to be going all the way through August and September, through all 15,400 nursing homes with multiple shipments of that.
Do you agree that that is on the immediate horizon ahead? That's one of the big vulnerabilities. Community spread is increasing in some places, but we also know we've got areas where there's congregate living, people with multiple risk factors.
So I think, as maybe been said by the colleagues, we are clearly seeing community spread in a number of areas. If you look at counties, I think Dr. Birx detailed yesterday that there are about 110 counties of real concern throughout the country. Well,
I guess, Admiral, excuse me for interrupting, but my time is short. I guess what I'm really asking is, are we preparing, and do our administrators and executives in nursing home facilities, know how to access the vast amounts of personal protective equipment that's being made available through AirBridge and through the work you've done? Because if we don't get it to the end user, then it's a vulnerability, and it will affect all of us.
Very briefly, because I know the time, I'm going to say the answer is yes, because we decided to ship door to door because we couldn't necessarily rely on the state distribution systems, because you just can't get that deep. So the only way to do it is get the address and ship it. And then secondly, the testing regimens that are now mandated through CMS, recommended by CDC, are pretty excellent, right? Every nursing home resident gets tested. Every worker gets tested every week. This is a very robust testing regimen that we think is going to put high protection.
Certainly has been in Texas. Dr. Redfield, in just a very brief amount of time I have remaining, let me just ask you a question. We heard some things, and of course people are concerned about China and the impact that China has had on our ability to fight this virus. Are there people working in the CDC in Atlanta who are Chinese nationalists? Do you have such people on loan from Chinese labs in the agency?
Well, CDC does have an office. CDC has an office in Beijing that is right next to the China CDC, and we work collaboratively on a series of things, particularly respiratory viruses and particularly influenza. We haven't been brought into the overall Chinese investigation of this current coronavirus epidemic. It's something I requested back on January 3rd and informally on January 6th.
All right. I want to be helpful to you on that, so I will follow up with you, and I have some ideas of some other things that we might think about as well, but I think that's a critical part of our discussion going forward and being prepared into the future. So thank you all. Thank the panelists.